but let me give you the principle behind it. Interest was created by, was a conspiracy that was created by a group of people that allowed a small group of people to wind up owning the properties of people for nothing.
For example, if I have $1 million to spare and I put it into a CD at 4% interest, I will make $40,000 a year. No social contribution, no nothing. However, if I'm a lower class person and have to take loans to buy my car or home, I am paying in interest, which, in abstraction, is going to pay that millionaire with the 4% CD. This stealing from the poor to pay the rich is a foundational, built-in aspect of the monetary system, and it could be labeled structural classism.
And after that, to not only own their properties, but to wind up owning and controlling the lives of even their children and their grandchildren for nothing. It's a conspiracy. And this conspiracy goes so far that through interest, different countries wind up in a situation what they call international debt. You've heard of foreign debt.
As babies starved to death in the Ethiopian famine, the World Bank demanded that all interest on its loans be paid. For while Ethiopians were dying of hunger, repayment to the IMF by coffee cash crop exports carried on unwaived. Correlation links higher interest rates to third world countries and increased crime, overfishing and deforestation. Even though the initial International Monetary Fund loan is repaid, accumulated interest cripples developing nations. The effects of interest and usury are devastating. Western governments no longer tolerate that greed is good, but the entire world is at the mercy of these greedy bankers, and their evil exploitation needs to be understood. Usury has always been seen as the domain of parasites, reaping the benefits unjustly of what others have planted. Jesus, peace be upon him, smashed the moneylenders' stalls, and Muhammad, peace be upon him, forbade all usury, but genuine business was granted.
So that countries are given money and they can't pay that money back. And so what happens, the people or the banks who have already been paid that money, another group of people go in there and take over the natural resources of that country, rule that country, run that country for hundreds of years on the basis of what? A debt that started out and built up interest. For instance, imagine a country borrowing 10 million and there being a 22% compounded interest on that every year. So you don't have to be a genius to understand that in a matter of 20 years, that 10 million winds up to be 230 million.
We begin by quoting former President Obasanjo, who said these words after the G8 summit in Okinawa in 2000. All that we had borrowed up to 1985 or 1986 was around $5 billion, and we have paid about $16 billion, yet we are still being told that we owe about $28 billion. That $28 billion came about because of the injustice in the foreign creditors' interest rates. If you ask me what is the worst thing in the world, I will say it is compound interest.
And it's still not paid. What do? They go and they start a civil war to make sure that people that are in place to begin paying that debt. And so imagine this not in one place, but all over the world, third world countries, undeveloped countries who enter these situations of debt, and they wind up remaining in poverty and remaining under disease and other things through what? Banks, conspiracies that introduce this issue of interest. Now to bring it home to you and I, what does it mean? I buy a house. I'm a simple person, a hard-working person. Me and my wife are both working very hard. We buy a house for $70,000. Or let's say here in Australia, let's put it a different way. Let's say it's $150,000. So we buy a home for $150,000. And we're very sincere. And there's a 19% interest attached to that, which means that over a period of a 30-year mortgage or 20-year mortgage, I wind up paying for that house if I live, if I continue my job, if I'm employed over a period of 20 to 30 years. For a $150,000 house, I wind up paying at least $280,000 for that same house. The worst thing about it, I must pay off the interest before I pay the principal. See what happens? So it means that for the first 15 years, I'm paying off what? Principal. Interest. And suppose I lose my job. I lose my job, my wife loses her job, I get sick, she gets sick. What happens?
No, 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 no! I don't have any more money! My job sucks right now, please! I'll have more money next month!
They come and take the house from me, is right? Even though I paid off $150,000, $160,000, they take the house from me, so that $150,000, $60,000 was for nothing, isn't it right? Then what do they do with the house?
They sell it for
They resell the house for more than what it was worth and give somebody else another mortgage for the house at maybe $220,000, and it just keeps on going. So this shows you that this crime is worse than slaughter. It's worse because it kills the spirit of people, their investments, their generations, and so the people who are engaged in that conspiracy, they have entered a war against God because it amounts to injustice and oppression. So for us Muslims, God made it clear to us. We don't write the contracts, we don't enter the contracts, and when we know about it, we try to find a way to get out of it.